welcome to Gaming News Weekly, your weekly gaming news show every Friday at 5 p.m. with your host, as always, it's me, I'm Rich, and my good friend and channel colleague, Tabs. Say hello, mate.
BArcadians.
So, as always, we've got three main stories for you this week. It's been a bumper week of surprises all round in the games industry, so we'll get onto that shortly. As always, we will finish with Gaming News Weekly. We won't finish with Gaming News Weekly, we'll finish with everything else, of course. But before we do that, let's talk about what we've been playing this week, if we have anything. I have. What about you, Taz? What have you been playing?
Yeah, I've just finished off in Inscription, really. So I've done all the challenges now on this kind of challenge mode at the end. I still need to get 2 starter decks, but I think I'm done. So I just want to rope you in now. I text you in the week to say, on Parsec, I just want you to play a game or two and just see what you think to it, because I want to see, I just want to see what you think to it. And apart from that, mate, Mrs. has started a new file on Horizon, Zero Dawn. So I've kind of been like watching a bit of that over her shoulder. She's been playing on story mode just so she can bash through it. We can both kind of relive that story a bit more going into West is the plan. But tell us all. Just
while we talk about that, Tabs, on that note, do you think, I started to play the original Horizon and sort of got overwhelmed by it, put it down, was playing other things. Do you think before playing, obviously the next game, Forbidden West, which is sort of a month out roughly, should I watch on YouTube like a story update just so that I get to grips with the story? Do you think that's worthwhile before tackling the new one?
I mean, I don't think it's absolutely necessary. From everything we've seen on Forbidden West, it looks to be its own new threat, new area. So I don't think it'll be necessary, and I think Sony will have probably designed it so it stands alone nicely. Okay. But I don't think it can hurt. Gives you a bit more investment in characters. We know, as we're going to come on to in this story trailer released this week, some of the older characters have been reintroduced. So I think it'll add to the experience if you get the chance, and I'm sure there's compilations out there.
Excellent. So, and moving on to what I've been playing.
How's life on the farm?
Yes, this is it. I'm now basically a farm worker as a part-time job. A bit more farming for me. I think I said this week to Tabs that Farming Simulator for me has become like the most slow-paced RTS I've ever played, I think. It's all about strategizing. What are you doing next? How are you tackling this? What are you doing with this? So, interesting. And it's, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the slow pace of it. It's good. It's a good just to do something a little bit mundane almost. It's quite nice. So I am enjoying that a lot. Expanding the farm. I'm currently debating whether to move into sugar beets, which is quite a lucrative crop, but I need to invest like $500,000 to do that. So that's where I'm at on my farm. Ridiculous as that sounds.
You need to invest what, mate? 70 billion? Was that
$500,000?
Oh, sorry, mate. Excuse me.
So I've got maybe a couple of harvests before I've got enough money to do that. That's me. So, I guess it's time to head on into what has been a crazy week of news. And to be honest, some of these stories just came out of nowhere, so it was a bit of a crazy one. So, we're going to get straight into it. So, first up, we have
the comet that came and struck the games industry this week.
Absolutely, which is the Activision Blizzard mega buy. And The Guardian had this to say on it. In 2014, Microsoft bought Minecraft developer Mojang for what seemed, at the time, an eye-popping figure of $2.5 billion, about £1.8 billion. It was the first in a series of bullish video game studio acquisitions by the tech giant, whose games division has been led by executive Phil Spencer, a long-time advocate for video games within Microsoft and the wider business world for the past 8 years. More studios followed for undisclosed amounts. Beloved California comedy game artist Double Fine, UK studio Ninja Theory, RPG specialist Obsidian Entertainment. It seemed that under Spencer's leadership, Microsoft was cementing its commitment to the Xbox console and the video games business by investing in what makes great, the people who make them. Then came 2020's deal to acquire ZeniMax, and with it Bethesda, for a properly astonishing $7.5 billion. This was different. This wasn't the Xbox division acquiring studios to make games for its console. This was an entire publisher with several different studios and a whole portfolio of popular game series. At this point, Microsoft's spending started to look like a monopoly move, a bid to sew up the market by closing off hugely popular games behind Microsoft's own consoles and services. When it was confirmed that Bethesda's forthcoming games, including this year's space role-playing game Epic Starfield and the next Final Fantasy Elder Scroll game, would be exclusive to Xbox and Microsoft Game Pass, I started to wonder whether Microsoft stated aim to make video games more widely available to everyone was lining up with its actions in the market.
But ZeniMax is nothing compared with this week's news that Microsoft is buying Activision Blizzard for nearly $70 billion. This latest acquisition, the biggest in video game history by some margin, more than 17 times what Disney paid for Marvel, shows beyond doubt that Microsoft is extremely committed to dominating the video game market, now and in the future. Its main competitor, Sony, has an exceptional stable of talented developers making games for its PlayStation 5 console, the latest of which, Insomniac Games, was bought in 2019 for just $299 million. If all of Activision Blizzard's games soon become Xbox and PC exclusive, as Bethesda's now are, it will transform the console market, creating even more of a monopolistic environment. Right now, with Nintendo, there are only 3 big players in games consoles. Do we really want that to become 2 or 1? What would that mean for games and the people who make and play them? And just to inform our discussion, mate, or at least my opinion on it, I included this little snapshot. This was written by Jason Schreier, printed in Bloomberg, or published by Bloomberg in March 2021. And he said, an industry dominated by a handful of big companies could eventually lead to creative stagnation and other symptoms of monopolization, like limited choices and higher prices. So, lots to discuss.
Yeah, see, it's a really tricky one because I thought that during the day today we could make the whole news item about this thing.
Maybe we will.
Potentially. There's so much to dig into here and potential, ramifications from this deal, etc., that it's hard to know where to start with this. But I will, I think, start with the obvious one, and that is this can only be bad for Sony and actual gamers in general, I think, because anyone who doesn't own a Microsoft console is now going to be missing out on hundreds of games that were multi-platform. Obviously, in some ways, I feel like this is quite a good thing for Activision Blizzard. Obviously, they're going through the ringer at the moment, and quite rightly so, with some of the accusations and some of the claims that are coming out of there. And we're hoping that Bobby Kotick will be moved on seemingly, hastily. And therein lies another problem with this, because I was reading that, and I mentioned this to Tabs during the day, that he's going to leave with like a massive $250 million handshake, or I think Tabs mentioned that it might even be $270 million. And I was like, he's royally messed it all up and allowed some horrendous things to go on, sort of knowingly in his workplace, and he's going to leave with millions. But that is a topic for another day. I think we've covered quite a bit of those kind of things, but yeah, I don't know. Do you want to take the mantle from there, Tabs? There's so much to dig into.
No, I think you're absolutely right that we should start out by saying, listen, in the short term, maybe this is the lesser evil, and actually combats the greater evil, which is the fact that Bobby Kotick, or whatever his name is still present in the games industry, still at the head of Activision Blizzard, and at the reins of a particularly damaging culture. Toxic, sexual harassment's rife. We've heard all the stories now. And this is hopefully going to disband that. I don't think there's any official announcement yet, but I think in 2023, when the acquisition does officially go through, Phil Spencer will be CEO, Bobby Kotick will be, as you said, sent out with a golden parachute of 250 to 270 million. But yeah, ultimately that's something to celebrate, and something in the short term that's good for those people working within Activision Blizzard who have been victims systems all this time.
And I will just put on that, I feel like Activision Blizzard have in some way lost control. They've got so big that they don't know how to control what's going on now. There's too many big people there that they don't want to ruffle feathers or whatever. And I can guarantee that Phil Spencer and the Microsoft management team will not allow any of the nonsense that has been going on there prior to this acquisition. That won't be stood for. There'll be, rules and regulations is probably the wrong term, but there will be a standard that people will be held to.
Code of conduct.
Exactly, and that's a really, really good thing to come out of this. That the right people are finally going to be in the right place to ensure that the right ways of working are paramount.
That will be interesting though, because we were just discussing before we went live, mate, that in the past Xbox have had a bit of a dodgy history with how they affect the studios they've bought. So we talked about Lionhead Studios and Rare, and now I think when they first started out acquiring studios, they perhaps were too bullish with the way they tried to influence culture to the point where it kind of suffocated creativity. I think Lionhead Studios closed down. Rare, obviously, I think a lot of their members left. It kind of crippled their output. And then I think they've obviously started to rebuild themselves, and Sea of Thieves and things like that. We're seeing good signs again. It seems like in the later years, they've actually taken a step away from these studios they acquire. So now, though, with Activision Blizzard, they've got to take a step in again. They need to get hands-on, and they need to really affect a change there. So it's going to be interesting to see how they navigate that. But really, that's a story that will come to fruition in time. But I think ultimately that brings us on. We talked about short-term benefits and short-term things to celebrate, but long-term is where I'm a bit more concerned. And I've seen on social media, the Twitter sphere, it's riled me up this week. Obviously, Rich and I, we like PlayStations. We've always bought PlayStations, invested on Sony's platform. But we are also, I think, pretty decent at remaining objective and neutral. And we want to see everybody thrive.
I would say definitely nowadays. And there was a time when I definitely was a bit of a fanboy for Sony because, I was immature and, I had a Sony console. So that, now I have a more level head. I'm a bit more mature. I just buy a Sony console because I like the games that Sony make, and has been the way. But, potentially Microsoft's sort of offering is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, isn't it?
Yeah, so we've pretty much given up the days of our, being console warriors.
Yeah.
And but this week on the Twitter sphere, I've seen a lot of what feels to me like sort of Xbox apologists that are trying to split hairs and debate on what a monopoly is, and almost defend this big, large-scale acquisition. So it's riled me up a little bit because I think it's a very important question to be asking what this means for the industry, and ultimately, is it a good thing long term? Now, personally, I suppose I can split it into two things that, like, economically, we can dive into why we don't think it's a good thing. I'll get out the way though, just before we do though, mate. Kind of morally, I have issues with this, and I've said it before on the channel, and we've talked about it, that I just don't like this essentially buying your way to market dominance. It's not been cultivated over time by skilled management and business acumen. I mean, you could argue in a way it is very clever business what they're doing, but you know what I mean. It doesn't feel like it's been earned as so much as it's just been bought just through the sheer buying power of a huge company and corporate entity. So, like, morally, it just feels a bit wrong for me. It doesn't sit right with me. But then, obviously, economically, over the long term, we talked about that Jason Schreier quote at the end of that piece there. And I think for me, there's just some real concerns over the fact that it is without doubt, these are two large-scale acquisitions. I think both of them probably record-breaking, at least in the tech world. So you can say that, yes, it's not a monopoly as we stand, but are those monopolistic moves? Yes, I think you can say that. Yeah. If we're playing Monopoly, mate, and you buy 30%, 40% of the properties on the board, I'm going to say, you've been a bit monopolistic there, mate.
Yeah, agreed. And I think I mentioned before we started filming the news that the worrying thing about this is once you have a lion's share of control of all of the studios that make games, do you then bend the games industry to what you foresee as, for instance, the most lucrative way of making games? So if you go, well, actually, the most lucrative games are, I don't know, the type of games like Fortnite, well, do you just get all your studios and say to them, by the way, everyone's making this type of game? So then other games that would have the opportunity to be created aren't being created. That's the worry, isn't it? The games industry is then shaped in terms of what it is and how games are being made and what games are being made by a single studio or a single entity.
Essentially, the market becomes almost autocratically vulnerable because it is just that one power that is in charge and has so much influence over the entire industry. So whilst we said, again, before we were filming, fair play to Microsoft at the minute, Phil Spencer, they seem like they are responsible figures who care about what they do, who care about being a good power in the industry, doing good things, trying to share better practices, that sort of thing. But all it would take is for Phil Spencer to retire or move on to pastures new and somebody else to come in who's more of a tyrant, and they're sitting at the steering wheel of, an absolute beast of a power in the games industry. And we said as well, it's like anything, isn't it? You want the markets to be, I don't know if this is the right terminology, but more democratic. So you've got a pool of stakeholders who represent different things. Competition, therefore, is going to be fiercer, which always benefits consumers. You're going to get different perspectives. It's better for innovation. It's just all round a better thing when there's that grand tapestry in almost anything in life. So yeah, I can't help but worry. And we said again, this seems to be like it's in preparation for the metaverse. It's now we've got these big superpowers saying the metaverse is coming, choose your side, because that's what the ultimate battle is going to be about. That's clearly what they see as the dominant entertainment media or medium in the future. And therefore, if they make sure they get their decks stacked now, they can duke it out with the likes of Facebook and Google and all that stuff. So yeah, suffice to say, mate, we've probably done plenty of time on this one.
Absolutely. I think
it worries me.
Just to close that off in terms of the worry, and I'm with Tabs on this, I think short-term potentially is a very good thing. We can solve some serious issues that we've got. Long-term poses more risk, and I think that is borne out with, I've read this week that after this announcement, $20 billion went off Sony's share prices. On the back of this could be very damaging for Sony and the PlayStation brand and stuff. And I think that tells you all you need to know about how people are thinking about, what is going to be going on in the future with this. So yeah, we'll wait to see what happens with this. Sony, I know, have come out and said recently in the last few hours that they don't see any worry about some of the games that are being made becoming exclusivity because there's already existing contracts in place. I find that interesting, but again, contracts generally tend to only be 2-3 years long per game type scenarios. So it'll be interesting to see how that shifts and moves around moving forward. But anyway, I think that's enough on this one. Should we move on to second story, Tabs?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to ask though, mate, briefly, what do you think should be a response from Sony? Because there's a lot of conjecture at the minute. Should they buy up some other companies?
Buy Take-Two? That's probably the I mean, that's the only thing that they could do that would be on par with this. That's how big this is. Don't you think?
I know. I just don't think they've got the buying power, though, have they? That Microsoft and Xbox have. So, it's such a crazy one. We don't even know if Microsoft are done buying publishers either. That's the scary thing.
I don't think there's a way that Sony can rebuff this. I don't think there's a way they can hit back at this.
Well, nice segue. Apparently, you could say that they maybe tried by releasing the Horizon Forbidden West story trailer on the back of this news. And this is what Verge had to say about that. So, Horizon Forbidden West is almost here, and to celebrate, PlayStation released a new trailer. In the new story trailer, we get a better idea of the threats Aloy will face going into the West. The land is dying, affected by some kind of ruinous blight that only Aloy, armed with her focus, has the power to stop. To do so, she'll mount her trusty strider and head west, exploring the beautiful ruins of famous landmarks like the Golden Gate Bridge. Aloy won't be alone on her trip. Her old friends, Erend and Varl, will accompany her on her journey. Another old friend, Silence, has also reappeared in the West and seems to be working for the Regala, a tribe dedicated to war and conquest, giving them the means to command and control the machines. In Horizon Forbidden West, Aloy will ride, hang glide and scuba dive through gorgeous new locales, searching for the secrets of the new plague and the means to destroy it. So yeah, it was a really cool trailer. Still looks gorgeous. That's been a mainstay for some time now, hasn't it? And everything we've seen about it. I threw out to Rich because as soon as they introduced these old friends, I just wondered, I know that Guerrilla had ambitions in the past to either make Horizon cooperative, a cooperative experience, or make a multiplayer spin-off. So I just wondered for a minute, was this the first little tease of, could Forbidden West have some cooperative elements? Can you jump into a friend's game? Which would be amazing, but you don't think so, do you, mate? You think that might be a step too far?
Yeah, I mean, I would love that. As you know, I love playing games, well, especially with you, but anybody, my friends, whatever. I really enjoy that. So I would love there to be some co-op elements, especially as I'm already, with the game's not even here, and I already feel overwhelmed by how big it's going to be. So the fact that someone could help me in the world would be a really good thing. And I think that's one of the, if I talk about, say, Demon Souls, that was one thing that kept Demon Souls really good, was working together on it and moving through it. So yeah, that is interesting. I noticed there's also, they've dropped a Meet the Cast video this afternoon, which I thought was very interesting. I don't know whether you saw that, Tabs. And I noticed there is...
Mocap.
Yeah, it was about mocap, and I noticed that the actor that plays Trinity in The Matrix, whose name escapes me right now, she's...
And Moss. Carrie-Anne Moss.
That's it, yes. She is voicing a character who we don't really know. They're new to this second game and look a bit mystical almost, which is an interesting. And they were seen in this trailer as almost like a godly-like figure. So that was interesting. We'll have to see how that gets fleshed out.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this game. It looks epic, and stuff like this and the way they're driving the game at the moment. All these trailers, they just make it look incredible, don't they? So yeah, I'm really excited for this.
Not sure it quite had the clout to do away with the Activision Blizzard story, but fair play. And we always love to see more of Horizon Forbidden West. I think one of the biggest games I'm most excited for at the minute. So Absolutely. Good on you.
So moving on to Mario Kart 9 gameplay leaks. What? So this came from Game Rant. While a new Mario Kart game has not been officially announced or confirmed, more details about the rumoured next instalment of the long-running series have started to circulating online. Of course, there's even more confusion over whether or not the next game in the franchise should even be referred to as Mario Kart 9, Mario Kart 10 or Mario Kart Crossroads. The confusion over whether or not this new game is going to be called Mario Kart 9 or not is born from the fact that Nintendo internally views Mario Kart Live home circuits as Mario Kart 9. Very interesting. When it comes to the next installment, industry insiders Leaky Panda has provided some supposed details about what people can expect when it arrives. The leaker posted several of those details on Twitter, with the biggest tidbit being that...
Rude!
being that what could be Mario Kart 9 will have Mario and adjacent characters, but also characters from Star Fox, Pikmin, The Legend of Zelda, Kid Icarus, Splatoon, and many other IPs. The leaker also said that one of the big changes of Mario Kart 9 will not only be the vehicles, but also that there won't be coins in this particular entry. It said there will also only be one item slot, and those slots will either be able to house a big 3-shell or star or small single shell or a mushroom item type. There's also supposed to be a way to upgrade the small items by passing through a box, turning it into a larger item. So, looks like Mario Kart more of the same, but with some differences. I guess a little bit like what they did with Double Dash. That's sort of what I'm taking from with it. You know, slightly changing the gameplay, but more of the Mario Kart DNA that we love, which is really exciting. What do you make of this, Tabs? I mean, it's all just rumours and speculation at the moment, but...
Yeah, this is it. Don't look too far into it. I think for me, I wanted a bit more of a change up than if this is basically it. You know, new characters is great. That always gives you, more creativity to explore different levels and, sound effects. We saw with the Zelda level. Do you remember the Zelda track that they kind of reshaped all of the items and sound effects around the Zelda series, which was really cool. So more of that's great. This kind of new weapon dynamic sounds, or mechanic rather, sounds interesting. There's a bit more strategy involved there in, do I shoot off this green shell or do I double down and try and get myself a red shell to make sure I can nail that guy in front of me? I think that's cool, but I just felt, I hope this isn't it. I hope there's more to these, dramatic twists and changes that were rumoured. Otherwise, it just feels a bit of only a mild step forward, and I really want that Breath of the Wild style step in the Mario Kart universe.
I think the biggest problem with Mario Kart is what do you do to mix it up? They've sort of done everything with it. If this is the 9th or 10th game, whichever you go, they've done so much of it now. It's hard to know what they could do to change it up and make it more dynamic. I don't know what they could do. Spawnwave,
obviously popular YouTuber, suggested that they do some sort of like GTA style story mode, I think, with it, so that you can drive around in cars in like a big open world and get out. Maybe that's a bit of a stretch, but I'd love to see a story mode, and maybe like you could do something like Horizon, like Forza Horizon 5, where you can still have races online and competitively. But then you've got this kind of free-flowing framework around it that you can explore an open world as such. I think there's so much potential, but Nintendo and online, they don't really gel, do they?
Yeah, agreed. I mean, to be fair, there's lots. They could do a what was that car football game that we played, Tabs?
Rocket League, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they could do a Rocket League type thing. They could do like a puzzle element where you have to use your cart to solve puzzles or something. There's other things they could definitely do, mini games and stuff. So I just feel like they don't seem like they want to take risks. I don't think enough, and that's the biggest problem.
Big cash cow for them, isn't it? So it pays them. Let's not divert too much from we know what sells. And Mario Kart, what was it, 8 Deluxe? It sold hugely, didn't it?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Anyway.
And especially in essence, it was just a rehash of a previous game from the previous console. So
yeah, right. It takes on, mate. You're gonna have to do all this. I don't have anything written down, so I'm gonna react.
No problem. Well, I'm gonna go everything else. So first up, we've got Hogwarts Legacy 2022 or 2023. So earlier on in the week, it was suggested that Hogwarts Legacy was going to be delayed until 2023, but everything online is pointing to it double down that it is going to release in 2022. And the only reason it may be pushed to 2023 is because of other game releases. So if it ends up that there's no real window to drop it into, then it may be pushed. But yeah, doubling down on 2022. And speaking of doubling down on 2022, God of War Ragnarok has also been reiterated that is going to drop in 2022, which obviously is a big surprise to me because I keep telling everyone it's going to go to 2023. So I look forward to that one. And on God of War has been Horizon Zero Dawn and Days Gone to become Sony's biggest selling PC launch. So very interesting indeed.
Wow.
And that's it for everything else.
Hey. So apologies, BArcadians. It's been a long one, but there was loads to talk about. Me and Rich were super passionate. Let us know in the comments if you've got any other thoughts, feelings, ideas about this cataclysmic news in the games industry. But Rich, over to you to see us out.
Absolutely. So we hope you've enjoyed that. If you have, definitely give us a like. It really helps feed into the algorithms to get other people noticing us. And if you're new here and you've enjoyed what you've seen, subscribe and become a BArcadian today. But that, I think, is all we've got time for this week. Another one for the archive.
Stamped and completed.